And at one point, I think you have to believe in yourself. You just know at one point that this is it. I'm doing this no matter what. Nobody's going to stop me. And you have to make it happen. You have to be.
Welcome to The Path to Wealth, the show about well-being, fulfillment, and financial freedom. And I'm your host, Hannes Henschel. Welcome back to The Path to Wealth. Today we have Alex Kholodenko from Wealthy Mind Investments. He's a co-founder and the company manages over $1 billion in real estate, which is a tremendous size of a portfolio. And he managed to build that over the last couple of years. Originally, he had a career in tech, and then he founded his real estate company. And today he will tell us more about his journey, not only immigrating into the US, but also living the American dream. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Hannes. I appreciate the opportunity to share, my path, my journey, my ups and downs being in America, and real estate investing journey as well.
Yeah, so maybe let's start with the ups and downs, or how did you end up coming to the United States from the Ukraine?
So I immigrated about 30 years ago. I'm originally from Ukraine, from a capital of the Ukraine, the city called Kiev. Unfortunately, there was some, really bad events that are happening with the war, all that. But 30 years ago, the borders sort of opened up, and I had a privilege and opportunity to, chase the American dream. My uncle, my brother, my father's brother left Ukraine very long time ago in the 70s. And he's been telling my father to, leave for many, many years, and that there was no such option. So for many years, the former Soviet Union would not allow people to immigrate, freely, even with the family reunion, because they were blood relatives. And in the 90s, the opportunity finally came along. It was a very long process. We had to go through a lot of immigration hoops. We had to fly to Moscow. There was an interview, and they wanted to make sure that these are not the real bad communists that will leave the country and spread the communism in the United States. And luckily, after several years of this very gruel process, we ended up in San Francisco, and I have lived in Silicon Valley for the last 30 years.
So it looks like they made a good choice with you, because you're clearly living the American dream and adding value over here big time after a long career in tech and then now in real estate. But how did that journey of arrival kind of was from your experience? How was it arriving in the United States, in a free country, after living in the Soviet Union?
So that's a really good question. And, looking back, it was an eye-opening, for me, because, the way former Soviet Union presented America is there was a lot of homeless people out there, there's high unemployment, there was a very rich people, and very few people are making good living. And that was not the case when I arrived. I remember really well. I didn't speak English when I arrived to the United States, so I had to go to the school and all that. I just knew, hello and how are you, that's all. And people were very friendly, even on the streets. And I started to wonder, why do people smile? and just walking on the street, people would say, hi, how are you? And that was a big shock that, from a cultural perspective, people in Ukraine and, a lot of time in Europe, people are not as friendly in general. There are some people out there like that, but in general, they're sort of not super friendly. And
I keep hearing that about Germany too.
And that was, there was eye-opening. And then I just went, I remember really well, literally the second day being in America, I just went to a huge shopping mall. And there was a lot of, stores, including clothes. And I just looked at the prices of some of these goods, for example, like pair of jeans is like $20. Oh my God. I will be so rich and successful once I start making decent money. That's what I thought for myself, because I knew the minimum wage at that time was like $4 or $5 an hour. And I said, if you work 40 hours a week, you will just make $5 an hour. You could make, you could buy, 20, 40 pairs of jeans in 1 week. that could have been, maybe several months of your earnings that you have to make back in Ukraine. So that was such an eye-opening for me, and just little things like just going to the grocery store and seeing so much food out there, and there's no line of people, and it was pretty affordable to buy, even exotic type of fruits that were not available, back then in Ukraine 30 years ago. Now it's it's different, but still at that time that was very eye-opening and shocking.
Yeah. I think people here almost forget how luxurious a simple supermarket is.
So true.
And I mean, you have firsthand experience. You've lived it, and it's. I think it's very hard to imagine for an American what it means to actually stand in line to maybe get some bananas.
Oh yes. Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. I remember because I came to America. I literally sold everything that my father and I had, and we had $1,500. That was all our life savings. I mean, imagine my father, who used to had blue collar job. We sold our apartment, including all of our belongings. The furniture, the silverware, all the stuff that was there. And we just came, to this country with $1,500. And I remember really well that day also, I think it was first day or second day, we actually did get a few bananas with just a few dollars. And they tasted so well, you have no idea. It was like the sweetest one. Welcome to America.
And you didn't have to stand in line for them for 2 hours.
Exactly. So true. A good memory. As you reminded me some of the sweetest memories that I've had since I arrived.
So what was it like for you to adjust? Because in the Soviet Union also there was like very limited product availability. Like, today when we go to Whole Foods, we have like 100 different soaps in front of us. But
yes.
But over there, you really just have very limited choices. So how did you feel the contrast, and also growing up like that and now seeing the sheer abundance in the United States? Do you think people have maybe lost perspective a bit?
Well, like I said, it was very eye-opening and shocking. But after a while, you kind of get used to, well, this is how the life should be, right? and instead of, like you said, waiting in line or sometimes having limited availability. And you're so right that a lot of Americans, they have no idea because they have nothing to compare.
Yeah.
Right. Telling somebody a story that you waited in line for 5 years to get your phone activated, your home phone number activated, it just doesn't register in their mind.
Yeah.
Because that's the scarcity mindset that communism had instilled in many people, where they had a very selected group of people that were doing really well, probably 1 or 2%, but then 97% were, very close-minded, scarcity, poverty type of level mindset.
Yeah.
And over time, I got educated. I went to school. I learned the language. I learned the culture, and I'm forever grateful for America because I think it's the best country in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I've been here for a decade, and I very much share that sentiment. Like I don't think I would have done quite the same where I'm from, and that's not even comparable to the Soviet Union, despite maybe we are having Eastern Germany. But I think I took a trip to Cuba a while ago, and that's when it really registered in my head. I'm like, this whole communist thing, it's not flying. Like
it's terrible. Yeah, it's just a scam. It's a terrible scam. And unfortunately, there are some people still believe in it. And the power of propaganda and the blocking of the news, worldwide, and just continuously putting the message out there that, one day the future is so bright, just continue to work and sacrifice. And it's very sad. It's very sad. And some people, unfortunately, still believe in that, because of the propaganda and the control that a lot of powerful people have over ordinary people.
Yeah. So was there any objection from the Ukrainian or like local Russian government to keep you from moving over, despite maybe telling you false stories about what the United States would be like?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are brainwashed, even still up to date, because they think of America as a terrible country that has a lot of these homelesses, unemployment. I mean, I have a Ukrainian and Russian channel, just to keep up with periodically some news. I don't watch the news a whole lot. And just the other day, I was watching some Russian news for a few minutes. So they keep saying, America is in recession. Things are so bad. There's a lot of unemployment going on. And then you just open the news here, businesses, there is a slowdown out there, but nothing drastic or terrible, just like what's happening in Russia, where the stock market was closed for several months. They're very limited in supplies of many goods. And the propaganda just continues. And when I said some of my friends that I was going to immigrate and leave to United States, and some of them were not very happy. Some of them were very envious, in fact, as well. So, when you don't have abundant mindset, most people want you to stay in the miserable state where you are. Because if you start making the move and leap and bound into something else, that's not something that they enjoy. Yeah. And they're happy with, right? When you're on the contrary, in abundant mindset, you want to bring your other people up to your level, so you enjoy together. But unfortunately, the misery and the negative type of people, they want you to stay where they are, together with you, to share the misery. And,
they want your company.
That's a common denominator.
While you are outgrowing their company or their circumstances, they want you to stay right there with them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how was it for you arriving here? You said you spent pretty much your entire adult life in the United States in Silicon Valley. How did you end up in technology?
Yeah, so I had a very humble beginning. I mean, my first job, I was working at the pizza place. I was passing flyers, like menu type of flyers to attract investors. Customers. Now I'm talking about investors all the
time. See, you went from attracting pizza clients to investors. Exactly. It's truly the American dream.
I know. And and I think I lasted a couple of weeks or a couple of months. I don't remember the exact dates, because I wanted to work. I wanted to have an income. And, since then, I bounced around some odd jobs, but it took me quite a while, maybe several years, to learn the culture, to learn the English, to get to know people, to make friends. Buying a car was a big deal. I mean, buying a car in the former Soviet Union was, a pipe dream. I mean, you'll never be able to afford unless you're rich. And, it's so affordable.
Then you have to wait 5 to 10 years.
I know. I mean, being in America, it's just, you just buy the car whenever you have the cash. Or if you don't have the cash, if you have a little down payment, you can arrange financing. Yeah. Right. And so long story short, several years, I kind of, bounced from job to job, and learned the language and ended up going to school. And, at that time in the late 90s, was it late 90s? Yeah, I think it was late 90s, where the Silicon Valley started to really blossom again and boom. And if you are, had a decent level of English skills and computer literacy, you could literally get a job. And so I started to apply for several jobs. It took me a while to get trained. And all my friends, by the way, also were from former Soviet Union. They also started to get the jobs in the Silicon Valley. And I was just thinking to myself, well, I'm not the smartest guy, but I can probably be trained. And at that time, my previous job, how I transitioned to tech world was I was a travel agent. I was a corporate travel agent. I was working for a big agency. I was making about $18 an hour. Just booking travel. So I was sitting in front of a computer all day long, talking to people. Hey, where do you want to fly? It was a corporate travel. People were just flying, booking trips here and there. And I said, well, if I sit in front of a computer all day long, booking travel, what if I just work for a software company, also sitting in front of a computer all day long, working on some kind of application and, making higher income? That was the motivating factor. It was not about technology, passion, this and that. I was just simply saying, if I can get paid more and have a better standard of living, as being in America, you always have American dream. You want to buy a house, you want to have a family, with ideally 2 kids, 2-car garage, and all that. So I was kind of brainwashed in that, American dream, chasing American dream. And I said, well, what's the fastest way to get there? And the fastest way to get there, getting a high-paying job and getting good education. So I did that. I finished the college, ended up, getting a job at a small startup, and I never looked back. From one job, I went to another job, and I kind of got stuck in corporate America for the last 20 years. And I've enjoyed my stay there, but there was a lot of ups and downs, as you know. Being in corporate America, it's not easy. A lot of people think, oh, these guys make tons of money, but it's very stressful. You work around the clock. I got laid off several times. Where, just to give you an example, sometimes in the middle of the week, there is a big corporate announcement. Something bad is coming your way when, unfortunately, some unexpected big corporate meeting where all hands on deck and that. So I've gone through that. All of a sudden, you have nothing. They just tell you, thank you so much for your work. Here is the 2-week severance pay. Good luck. So you start over.
Yeah, we've seen quite something like that in the last couple of months, where big tech companies are laying off because they're overstuffed.
It's another cycle. This is not
another cycle. Yeah,
correct.
So how did you move on from those rejections? Because the truth is always in the resilience. And how did you move on from being laid off and kind of leveling it up from there?
Yeah, so I think in general, my personality, I always have had a thick skin. So even though, some people would say no to me or reject me or have disappointments in me, you cannot take it personal. And I know it's easier said than done. Every time there is a layoff, they keep telling nothing personal. Well, if it's nothing personal, why me? Why not that guy? Right? Because they typically don't lay off everybody, right? They just pick and choose based on, your a lot of times it has nothing to do with performance, by the way. Many times I was laid off because I was doing really well. I took care of the job. It's the personal relationships, it's favoritism, it's the people that can sometimes make sacrifices in terms of pay or being less outspoken. And that was always my struggle. I have always been an outspoken kind of guy. And I said, you know what, if this is not right, I'm just going to speak up. And if I have to pay it back later, I'm okay with it. I want to live my life with honor. I want to live my life with honesty. And it's okay. Every time I would be laid off, I would bounce back. But at one point, I think I realized that my heart was not in corporate world anymore. Yeah. I think I saw a different path. I said, you know what, I've had enough. I've had a lot of these up and downs. And I'm not saying it's easy being an entrepreneur, by the way. I don't have a job now. I left last year. But at one point, I realized this is not the direction I'm going. The next 20 years, I'm going this way. And I never look back.
So how did you find that way? Because you said you've kind of seen it, but how did you first get exposed to, being a real estate investor and like considering that as a full-time career after being corporate for so long?
Yeah. So it was a journey. This is not a quick scheme. This is not an overnight success. And you see a lot of people, with similar background to mine. I came to America with nothing. I learned my role, and at one point, being in corporate America, working in a tech job, making 6-figure income was kind of cushy. But at the same time, when you go through these ups and downs, you start questioning yourself. Is this the direction you want to go? After each disappointment, you get up because you have family obligations and you need to move on and you need a paycheck. There's no sugarcoat, right? Yeah. Dealing in Silicon Valley, this is not a cheap place to live. I have a lot of bills to pay. I have kids. I have family, insurances, mortgage, cars, college. But at one point, you realize this is probably a dead end. And you might get lucky and get a big payoff from an IPO and that like that. I didn't get lucky. A lot of people don't get lucky. It's very stressful. You work around the clock. There is no downtime at all. Even on vacation, they'll still ping you and ask you to do certain things. And I started asking myself, well, if not that, what else would it be? And I always had sort of an entrepreneurial spirit. Even back in Ukraine, after finishing high school, I was selling books, for example. I was buying them at wholesale and selling them at retail price. So being in America, I realized that I needed to have a business. I needed to have another income stream or multiple income streams. So I don't have to rely on my W-2. And the common denominator was, after reading many books, going to podcasts, conferences, was real estate. Real estate is a great vehicle to build wealth. This is not something that can be outsourced, like a lot of tech jobs, for example. People need a place to live. People always will desire an affordable place to live or luxurious place to live because of the housing, because it's such a common need that you cannot just ignore. So I started asking myself, well, real estate is great. How do I get started? And I started with single-family home. My original idea was I was going to buy 10 homes in my name, buy 10 homes under my wife's name, and retire happily thereafter over time. But what I also learned was that the amount of hustle, the amount of time commitment that it takes to manage a single property was very stressful and, frankly speaking, not worth it. So I ended up buying one home in Florida, which I still keep, but I only make $300 a month in passive income. This is not something you can quit your job about, right? And then I explored flipping home strategy. You can go to auctions, buy these cheap homes, renovate and sell for profit, which all in theory, sounded like amazing. You can make $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 profit. So I found a mentor that actually does that, and I picked his brain. I went to several auctions, and then I realized, what am I doing here? This is not the strategy that I want to work with. I suck at construction. I don't like operation side. I don't like to even be involved in this cheap, terrible neighborhood type of homes. And I said, I'm out. I cannot do that. But luckily for me, I'm an analytical type of person. I understand the numbers. Most people in real estate investing do not understand the numbers. Even, unfortunately, a lot of realtors are terrible at crunching numbers when it comes to investments. So what I ended up doing was, after a lot of research, I ended up in syndications. I really like the concept of investing passively and letting somebody else manage the asset. So after investing for many, many years in tech sector, stocks, SP 500, indexes, ETFs, this and that, I tried it all. And every time my portfolio would tank during the recession, I was like, is this the best strategy out there? Because, Wall Street obviously always wants to push the buy and hold, dollar cost averaging, continue to invest, don't worry about it. One day you will retire and enjoy your retirement. But every time there's a recession, there's a 40% drop. And it takes 80% just to break even. And after a lot of research and reading books, I realized that most wealthy people, they don't follow this strategy at all. They have certain exposure to stocks, but they're not buy and hold type of investors. They invest in private equities. They invest in the pre-IPO. They invest in syndications. They buy single-family homes that are managed in a pool of investors. So I was hooked on syndication model very early on. So what I ended up doing was I was one of the early pioneers investors that invested in CrowdStreet platforms. There was a lot of them back in 6-7 years ago. Some of them actually, unfortunately, went out of business. So I did lose some money out of it. But in the meantime, I learned about the syndication model, and I was able to invest in 52 syndications over time. over the last 8 years or so. So I learned how to underwrite the deals. I learned how to differentiate good deals between bad deals. I ended up investing with some partners, operators that I'm doing business with now. So it was good, bad, and ugly, and everything in between. And about 3 years ago, I started asking myself another question, which is, well, you know how this works now. You know how to vet the operators, how to find good deals. What if you start telling other people about what you do? And because some people actually did start asking me, Alex, when you have a real estate investment opportunity, why don't you tell us about it? So I started to tell people about it. And 3 years ago, we launched this company called Wellth Investments with my partner and friend, Ashish, that actually we ended up meeting while working in the corporate world 20 years ago. It's a small world, as we all know. You don't know how sometimes you intertwine and with other people. So we ended up working back then 20 years ago. There was another recession, September 11. We ended up working in the mortgage company. And we learned all about underwriting and the risk and credit scores and all that. And 17, 18 years later, we ended up launching the company, Wellth Investments, where we offered people an opportunity to co-invest in a large commercial syndication apartment buildings with us. So it's kind of a long story, but this is how I got started, and this is where we are.
But it's great. You also have a very long relationship with your partner, so you probably know him really well, and you kind of knew exactly what you were getting into partnering with him.
Yes, very true. And I can't emphasize this enough. There is a lot of people reach out to me and many other people about partnerships, and they take it too light. You cannot take partnership lightly. You need to invest time with people to make sure that you are aligned, that you can trust the person, and you can be transparent with the person even when things don't go bad. And do you have supplemental skills to each other to be in a partnership? That's another key point.
Yeah. So in the current environment, since you said, you really hone in on the underwriting, where do you think people or even real estate investors should be especially careful?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. So there is definitely a slowdown. Let's not sugarcoat this. The economy is doing okay. Some people say that we are in recession. I don't know. I don't have the crystal ball. I don't know the answers. I think there is a slowdown, but nevertheless, there are some still deals out there that need to be made. We are not slowing down. There's a lower deal flow, a number of deals that we evaluate, but we still do. I think at this point, you need to be super selective on who you're investing with as far as the experience. I think the easy times are gone in terms of you just park your money. This is a decent asset. These guys have tried it once. They're local. They know what they're doing. I have boots on the ground, all that. Those times, I think, are gone. I think this is the time where you invest with somebody who has a lot of experience, who has a lot of execution experience, because this is not about just buying an assets and hoping and praying that it goes up over time in value. That's not the case here anymore. This is the time where you really need to have systems in place. And this is exactly why we work with very experienced operators that have a minimum of 20 exits.
Yeah.
From operational perspective, we work with operators that have fully integrated property management. Because a lot of times when you outsource that to third party, it's a hit and miss. Many times it's a miss. A lot of people brag about the exits and good returns, but a lot of people do not share horrible examples of cases where people lost money or there's a capital call.
Yeah, I think that the last 10 years or ever since 2009 have been quite exceptional for the multifamily space. And there are many winners who might not be real winners because they just kind of...
They were just lucky. And
they rode the wave.
I give them credit for execution, but at the same time, things are time different. I mean, we just exited on a deal, less than a 2-year hold, 60% return to our investors, 32% IRR. and it was a newer building. There was a very low capex. I mean, literally, we just repainted some of the building interiors and added an internet. That's it. And it was a 60% IRR, right? I think those kind of investments are going to be rare going forward over the next 2 years, because the interest rates have definitely gone up, and the labor also and the material prices have significantly gone up as well. Nevertheless, because of the high inflation and the huge demand in certain markets, especially Sunbelt states, we think there are still some opportunities to invest, but be very selective.
So what are your prime criteria to be extra selective right now?
Yeah. So again, number one is for us, it's a track record of the operator. Forget about the deal for a moment. I'm not getting excited about 2x, 3x, 5x, this and that. It doesn't really matter to me. The key to this business is the execution. Think about the Google. Google was not the first company that invented the search, but they were able to execute it and build such a strong engine because they had a vision and they had momentum. They had smart people that they attracted as well. So when we look for the deal, obviously we look at the market to make sure it's growing, the positive trends of migration, jobs, rents. But number one key for us is the execution. Is this sponsor able to execute on the business plan in this market previously? Have they had any hiccups? Do they have a property management team that is fully integrated? How are they mitigating the risk? Are they transparent? Are they asking, when we're asking them tough questions, are they answering them, or do they go dark? Are they conservative? Do they have reserves? Things like that.
Yeah. I mean, your company is invested in over 15 states in the Sun Belt. What are kind of your primary markets right now? Where do you think there is a good focus?
Yes, so we've had a lot of deals, obviously, in Texas. I think Texas is a little bit oversaturated. There's a lot of activity going on, but periodically we find deals in that market as well. For example, we started 3 years ago. We've done 14 investments as a firm. And only last year, we did one deal in Austin. And we wanted to do the deal in Austin for a very long time. But we just couldn't find the operator that has the local presence in that market. And when the deal came along in Domain, which is one of the top districts of Austin, we just finally said, thanks God. Finally, we found an operator in a great location. We had so much demand, and we oversubscribed quickly. So we like Texas, but specific, very specific geographical areas. We haven't done any deals, for example, in Houston, because it's been hit and miss for many experienced operators in that market. We like Dallas, we like Austin. We will probably do some deals over the next several quarters in those two markets. We like Phoenix a lot, although it's a pretty hot market. Some people say also, just like Dallas and Austin is oversaturated, but we continue to monitor that. We like Las Vegas a lot. We might do another deal there as well. We've done several deals in a market that a lot of people don't know about, which is Nashville. And Nashville is a really fun town to be.
Yeah, I agree.
It has really good fundamentals. The price per door and the rents are still through the roof. Just over the last year, for example, the rents have gone up 32% year over year, which is pretty amazing. So we've invested heavily in that market. We like Charlotte a lot. So we will continue to invest in that market. And we just signed an agreement with the company, a big operator in Florida. So after 3 years, we're finally going in Florida because we like the fundamentals a lot. We like the Tampa Bay market in general. I just was on the due diligence visit trip several weeks ago. So we will be doing more and more deals in Tampa Bay market because we like Florida because of jobs, migration, taxes, weather, retirees. There's a lot of good fundamentals. So we will continue to do more deals in that market as well.
So you feel like that there will remain strong fundamentals? I mean, we've seen incredible outflux from the New York area into Florida just during COVID. And
correct.
You have high conviction on that staying that way.
Yes, correct. So I was there just several weeks ago, and there's more and more people moving there. The rents are continue to rise, and it's still very affordable. Just to give you an example, one bedroom in St. Pete market is between $1,300 to $1,800 a month, which is pretty affordable if you ask me, right? We're not talking about the luxury type of apartment, obviously, but it's 5-10 minutes from the beach. There's plenty of jobs. There's no state tax. Downtown area is booming even on Tuesday nights. So that gives me a high confidence that it's a desirable place to live.
Yeah, compared to the over $5,000 median rent in New York City right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, those places do have favorable, overall circumstances, like lower rent, and now with more and more remote work. And I mean, you're in the tech industry. Do you think that the companies will eventually manage to get people into office, or the employee holds the rein and stays work from home?
Yes, so that's a really good question. Majority of our investors are tech people. We have several realtors, CPAs, attorneys, entrepreneurs as well. But I would say close to maybe 60-70% of our investor base are tech people. Why? Because Ashish and I were in the tech industry for so long. So you typically attract like people, right? And what I've seen over the last several years is that there is more and more remote opportunities are available and opening up because of COVID. But there are some companies where the culture of them wants people to go to the office. It's just the culture. Sometimes it's also boss preferences. But in general, what I could say is that I think the trend for remote work will continue. We will never be the same as we were before. And it's actually very advantageous to employers. The reason why they're doing that is there's no office space that they need to pay. In a lot of times when the worker relocates to a different state, they'll adjust the salary. They're not stupid. They're not going to pay top salary to somebody who is living in a less expensive area to live. So there's a lot of perks and benefits for employers, and the employees are happier being remote too. Certain employees, right? So being remote has its advantages and disadvantages too, because you're kind of disconnected from the culture. But they do find a way for people to go to maybe quarterly or yearly or semi-annually sort of retreats or meetings. So they want to keep the culture alive by meeting people, but they don't have to go to the office. As long as you do your job, there's no need for you to be in the office every day. Because, for example, Silicon Valley, we have a lot of employers that went back to the more hybrid role, a hybrid way of people sometimes work from home a couple of days a week, and then they can stay at home several days a week. The traffic is terrible. I mean, it takes sometimes an hour and a half each way to get to work. So a lot of people complain about it. Instead of spending so much time commuting, they could just stay at home and do their job.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you have a company in the Bay Area, New York City, and you have to also cover people's living expenses within their wages. So if they would live or work remotely in basically any other place than those two, it would be significantly less.
Correct.
And the quality of life goes up.
Yes.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself and your company going over the next couple of years? What are your goals?
So that's a good question. So we started, as I said, 3 years ago. We've done about 14 investments. We have about $27 million under asset management that we placed in different deals and different sponsors. Our goal is $100 million over the next several years. I think we have a clarity to where we want to go. It's all about execution. We've done it before. We typically invest between $3 and $5 million per deal. We'd like to get to a 10 million mark in a certain future. And we will continue to operate more efficiently and look for quality deals. We turn down a lot of deals.
Yeah.
We work with 5 different operators. We operate in a fund-of-fund model where we create an agreement with an operator that we vetted out, that we like, we trust. We went to see them. We went to a couple of properties. We invested with them, so we know how the reporting works. So it takes us close to a year to vet out the operator.
Yeah.
And we will continue, to go in that direction. And periodically we bring additional capital partners. It's also a process, vetting out process, just like an operator. We don't bring anybody just from the Facebook. We have to meet them. We have to get to know them. We have to vet them out. We have to like each other. We have to trust each other. And we're very diligent about the selection process who we work with.
Yeah, I always say, it's actually more intense than getting married, and it gets
Very
more
true.
ugly than a divorce when you try to separate business partners. And
very true. Can't agree more.
Yeah, I also have a huge emphasis on, I call it breaking bread and kind of getting to know everyone and sitting at the table and, really building that relationship over a long time to vet the partners that you potentially invite into your opportunities.
Very true.
So I know you already did your yoga this morning and you pumped some weight.
Yes. Just get back from the gym.
Yeah. One of my favorite questions is, what does it mean to you to live a life well lived?
Just being happy. I think the happiness is internal. It's just waking up in the morning, fully knowing that you have a purpose in life. I'm grateful for my family, friends, for my children. I have 2 boys, a lot of friends, a lot of investors. It just, being in the flow. It just, and I think a lot of people, if you ask me, is, they make a lot of money, especially in tech, but they're not internally happy. And I was that person. I have to admit that. At one point, I actually broke down in terms of my physical health. I had a herniated disc where I was just not internally aligned with who I am, who I was doing. And, there is a mind and body connection, right? And the body broke down because I was not happy. I was stressed. I was not doing what I was supposed to doing. And I took time off. I changed jobs. I knew that I was going to leave eventually, but a lot of people, by the way, quit too soon. I think you need to have that transition period, especially if you have family and obligations, right? And I pivoted a little bit. I was happier. And I created a roadmap and I executed. It's all about execution. A lot of people talk big and we do nothing because of the fear. Fear is what's holding us back. And obviously a comfort zone. So overall, I consider myself, I'm a happy person. I wake up every day excited about what could I create? Who could I help? Who could I serve today?
So how did you find your roadmap from being one of those maybe unhappy but high-earning tech employees to, mapping out and executing on it?
Yeah. So again, like I said, it's a journey. I think it's a lot of self-discovery. It's a lot of self-absorption. There's a lot of downtime, quiet time, research, self-doubts, fears. And at one point, you realize that you got one life to live, and you have choice in life. You can continue the route. The power. What is the definition of insanity? Doing thing over and over again. Job hopping again and again, making $10,000, $20,000 more. Is this going to make you happy? At one point, I realized it's not the case. I'm not going to do that. I will build enough momentum. Then I can quit my job. And 3 years ago, we started the company during COVID time, and I still had a job. I was working remote, and we were locked down as well. So there was no place to escape anywhere. And so I got really focused. I got focused on my job, and I got focused on the business. I would spend 40 hours at my job, and then the rest on building the business. And then at one point, we built enough momentum that both of us quit the job and we never look back.
Yeah.
But during those times, it's a self-talk, it's a self-motivation, it's a hustle, it's a discipline. And at one point, I think you have to believe in yourself. You just know at one point that this is it. I'm doing this no matter what. Nobody's going to stop me. And you have to make it happen. You have to be this is not the right time. Just as Napoleon Hill said in Think and Grow Rich, start where you are and you will find better tools along the way. At one point, you're going to say, I'm doing this every day. Move a needle. Do something more every day that will get you closer to your goal.
Yeah. So what are your tools? Do you have a daily practice?
I have a morning routine, some people don't like routine word, so I should probably not use that as well.
You can say whatever you want.
Yes, I have what's called a ritual. It just sounds better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I read this from Brendon Bouchard. So I'm a big self-development junkie. I love Tony Robbins. I've gone to many of his trainings. I've read a lot of self-motivational, self-development books. So every morning I start very simple by just waking up, no phone, going outside with gratitude. How grateful I am to be alive, to be in America, to have a house, to have family, to have kids, to have a business, to have friends. So I just recharge my batteries and tell myself, pride myself that it's going to be a great day. And I exercise lightly in the morning. Then I meditate. I go outside for fresh air. I come back. I have breakfast. I review my day of activities that is planned ahead. I have a lot of calendar is my boss. And I just go about my day on execution. And by the way, if you're an entrepreneur, your day goes like this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of unknowns. Appointments canceled. New person comes in. New deal. And you have to enjoy this ride.
Yeah, it's a very unpredictable ride. Gotta enjoy it.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for sharing your story. Starting all the way across the sea in Ukraine, is going through all the ups and downs to be able to share this today. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Anas. Appreciate the opportunity. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, I can be reached at alex@wealthymindinvestments.com. Happy to help if somebody was to get started or exploring partnership opportunities or real estate investments. I know how difficult or overwhelming a lot of times it is in the beginning, and I'm happy to help. We can schedule the call and chat and get to know each other. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story.
You're welcome. We will also make sure to add your LinkedIn contact in the show notes so everybody can reach out to you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us at The Path to Wealth. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Check out our upcoming guests and be sure to share it with all your friends and family that want to take their life to the next level of wealth.